Recorded live.
Recorded live on April 25th, 2013. This is the Reverend Sandra and Daly, and I don't even know how to express how happy I am to be here today with all that's been going on. Let me just start by saying hello to the people in the chat room. Deanna is here from Hawaii, 5 hours earlier than me, which just seems strange to me in the United States. And guest 3, if you would tell me, type your name in the chat so I'll know who you are, that would be wonderful. Or not, you don't have to if you don't want to. Right now, since I have started the call, and anybody who's ever heard me do one of these calls knows that I do not follow the chat because it's very, very distracting. So I'm going to minimize the chat for anybody. Oh, hi, Paula. Thank you for telling me who you are. I'm going to minimize the chat and do my thing, and I'll come back and answer any questions. If you have questions, please type them in the chat, and I'll come back and see what's going on here in a little bit. But for now, I am minimizing you. So, what's been going on? This call is a 1-hour call, and it is my firm intention to be respectful of your time. I will be done in 1 hour. If you're on this call, it's pretty much because you know what's going on. So I'm just going to briefly explain for anybody who comes back and listens later. My husband and I are traveling. My husband, Rick, is a stilt entertainer, and he decided, he's almost 60 years old, and he wants to do something meaningful with his life. And so he has decided that he wants to, somebody is trying to reach me on my phone, that he wants to, see? Distractions. Okay. He wants to do something meaningful, and his passion is entertaining on his stilts. That is what he's always wanted to do. He's been doing it for the last several years, and he just has a ball, and so does everybody who's around him. And he has lately gotten into doing events that benefit people with special needs, and that is those people. My friend Janny Rose and her son Charlie, who has Down syndrome, calls disabled people differently abled people. And the more you spend time around people with special needs, the more you see how true that is, because those people are amazing. And Rick really just adores them. So he is dancing across America for people with special needs. We are living in a leap of faith. We sold his motorcycle and bought a motorhome. Her name is Betty Lou, and she is a 1989 Tioga Aero, which really just means she's a 1989 Ford Econoline van with a 27-foot motorhome shell around her, and that is our house. We live in a portable house, and we drive. We've been in a bunch of different states now, and we have Betty Lou is old, and she sat for like 8 years in the heat in Phoenix before we bought her. And so every once in a while, sometimes like twice in 1 week, we have had to have her towed because she's had issues. But for the most part, she runs just fantastic, and we adore her. We live in her, we travel in her, we have our 3 dogs with us, and we are just living a grand adventure. Well, part of our adventure is not knowing where the money's going to come from. We don't have a clue, because he is gifting his time and talent at these events for people with special needs. And so we really, the idea, when we left Phoenix, it was hot in Phoenix. Hello. But when we left Phoenix, I've been in Arizona for 13 years now. I have gotten used to the weather there, and I forgot about spring in the rest of the United States. And we have run into weather that has kept him from doing what he was planning to do to earn us some money. He was We've had experiences with him getting on his stilts at, like, truck stops and dancing for gas, and that has gone well for us. However, during this trip, we left Phoenix on April 1st, and it's been cold. It's been cold and windy and snowy, and when we were in Denver, we were in single-digit temperatures, and with the wind, it was like 7 degrees below zero. Well, being outside on stilts on the ice and snow isn't gonna work for Rick. So he's really finding himself in some frustration about, what am I going to do about the money? What am I going to do? It's been so frustrating for me to see him so frustrated, because he is not used to feeling discouraged. He's never pushed at the boundaries of his comfort zone this much before. You know, he's gone outside his comfort zone a little bit here and there, but now he's almost 60 years old, and we're in a really old motorhome, and we love her dearly, but sometimes she has these issues, and I don't know what I'm going to do to pay bills, and she only gets 6 miles to the gallon, and Rick is really far outside his comfort zone. I'm a bit better off because I have been practicing this stuff for a really long time, and it really just feels like my role in this is to support him as he gets his feet underneath him, you know. So, okay, so that's a bit in a nutshell what's been going on. We haven't had a lot of money. We've been, you know, making ends meet and making do, but we haven't had a lot of money. And we left Wichita last Friday, last Friday would be April 19th. We left Wichita to drive the 2.5 hours that it should have taken to get it, maybe 3, that should have taken to get us to Yukon, Oklahoma, where we are visiting friends. Well, instead of taking 3 hours, we broke down. Betty Lou, on the freeway, we were on I-35, headed for exit 138B in Oklahoma City, and we got to about mile marker 144 or so, and Betty Lou started making a noise that didn't sound very good. And Rick looked down at the oil pressure and said, oh, my God, we have no oil pressure. We need to get off the freeway. We need a gas station. We need a grocery store. We need something because we have no oil pressure. And no gas stations, no nothing at a couple of exits that came up. And then at exit 141, we saw a sign that said there was a Conoco gas station. So he took that exit. And as we came off the freeway onto the exit, the sign said that the gas station was down to the left 5 miles. This was not a good thing. We call her Auntie Betty Lou. Our Auntie Betty Lou was in pain. She was like screaming in agony. It sounded really, really awful. And Rick was just praying, please don't throw a rod. Please don't throw a rod. Come on, baby. We're doing what we can. And we sort of affirmed that there would be a grocery store or a Circle K or something in between us and the gas station we were headed for. Oh, no, there were trees and houses and grass, and that was it for 5 miles with Betty Lou screaming in pain. And finally we pulled into this place and shut her down, and that is where she sat. And she's got no oil pressure. I happen to be good at standing in faith because I have a lot of practice. I have a lot of practice really being comfortable being uncomfortable is probably the best way to say it. I push at my comfort zone all the time because I understand what it is. So Rick, not so much. He's not used to being uncomfortable. And something I say to people about my husband all the time is that he lives his whole life from a place of joy. Well, his joy has been challenged in this circumstance. His joy has been challenged, and that's it. But he he has felt like the world was coming to an end. Oh, my God, he's been so upset and really not really knowing what to do. It caught him off guard, and it knocked him off balance. I'm happy to say that he has found his joy, but during those first few days, I got to really just support him in allowing him to feel his feelings and let them be what they were, and just let him, experience it how he was experiencing it, and he was not having any fun. So we pulled into that gas station Friday evening about 7 o'clock. We had no water, no electricity. It was beautiful. It was beautiful, and there was lots of room for our dogs to run and stuff, and it was, really, if you got to break down, it was a good place to break down at. And the people there were nice, and they said, it's a real bummer that you're broke down in our parking lot, but of course, they were nice about it. So as I said, have lots of practice applying these principles in my life. And basically, I want to do this call because I pretty much have been living the content of the first book that I wrote, which is called, it's just a little book. It's a pocket-sized book. It was written at the request of probably 200 prison inmates who wanted to know how I was able to change my life after I left a life of hardcore domestic violence. These gentlemen in prison wanted to know, how were you able to do it? And I would share with them these tools that I used for myself in that circumstance, and they would say over and over again, they said, please write this stuff down for us in a format we can carry on our person so we have it when we need it. And so that's what this book is. It's called Choose Your Universe. Choose Your Universe. And it's really the basics. And that and it's an easy thing to fit in an hour, the explanations. So that's really what I wanted to do. The idea behind this phone call was, since we don't have a lot of money, or we didn't, we were, I don't even want to say it that way. We didn't know what we were going to do. I knew that the universe would take care of it because I know that the universe knows what it's doing. Universe with a capital U, meaning God. So God knows what it's doing, and I know it. And I have so many experiences like this that I can look to as proof that it's easy for me to stand in faith and know that it's all happening for a reason, and that reason is always to serve and support me in my forward movement. So what do I need to stress out about? I don't need to stress out, because stress is only going to block me from being able to see any solutions that are going to show up. So I'm good at breathing and standing in faith and allowing things to be what they are and saying yes to things exactly as they are. That's a really powerful thing to do for yourself. Just say yes to it all the way it is without wishing any of it was different, and there is no stress. There is no stress. So during this experience, that is what I have done. And the Choose Your Universe material, so we didn't know what we were going to do, but I am good at taking the lead and knowing that it's all happening for a reason and that everything's going to be fine. So Rick got to just let himself feel his feelings and go tell the story that he wanted to tell about how bad it was and all that, while I did what I do, which is stand in my truth. I stand in my truth, and I apply the Choose Your Universe material really out of habit now. So I've been sitting here today going, okay, what am I going to say? Because I do this stuff so habitually now that I've practiced it for so long that it has become a habit. So I don't think about it, I just do it. So the idea behind this, I'm going to get to the point, I promise. This call is a for donation thing. And we've received some donations that have been really just wonderful, and I want to say thank you. It caught me off guard that people started making the donations right away rather than waiting for the call to see if they're actually inspired to make donations. And to those of you who already have, we are so grateful. We are so grateful. And we're just grateful for the way these things have unfolded, because it's been really an amazing thing to experience. And let me just say right now, Betty Lou is not very well insulated, and there's some noise outside. If you're hearing it, I apologize. Okay, so this call is meant to raise some money for us for repairs to Betty Lou, because I called the mechanic I got a hold of a mechanic finally on Monday. Oh, we have since been towed to our friend's house in Yukon we were at a place called Pops, and we were there until Sunday afternoon, and then we had Betty Lou towed to our friend's house, and we are in a really good place. We're safe, we are happy, we have electricity and water and 8 acres for my dogs to run on, and horses right outside the window, and if you got to break down somewhere, this is a beautiful place to be. It's green, there are trees, there are people who love us, and life is good. So I was able to get a hold of a mechanic finally on Monday, and they said it's going to take $500 to $600 just to find out what the issue is that needs to be fixed with Betty Lou. And we had some money, but not that much. And so this call is meant, if anybody listening, whether to the recording or live, and I'm going to check the chat here in a couple minutes, and you feel inspired to gift us with something, there's a PayPal link at www.dancingacrossamerica.com, and you can do so there. And every penny helps, whether it's to go towards Betty Lou, getting her fixed right now, or toward gas down the road. If you're listening to this, 3 months from now, we can always use money for gas. So that's what this call is about. It's about raising some money. It's about inspiring anybody who listens to really just know that no matter what you're experiencing, it doesn't have to be ugly. It doesn't have to feel ugly. It doesn't have to feel bad or negative, no matter what it is, because it's just a circumstance. And something that I have learned for myself over the last 13 years, really, I learned it in a really big way when I was on the Greyhound bus running for my life from my last domestic violence relationship. I learned this in a very big way. Circumstances just are. They just are. They're neutral. They're neutral. Circumstances do not care one bit what I think about them or how I feel about them. They don't care. Take the word apart. Make it 2 words, circumstance. All that word means is that which stands around me, and it doesn't get any more neutral than that. But my experience of the circumstances is completely up to me. So and what Choose Your Universe is about the story that we tell. It's about learning how to change the story that we tell about our circumstances, which then changes our experience of our circumstances. And it works every time if you do it deliberately, if you do it with intent. So this right now, what we're experiencing right now, Betty Lou isn't running. She isn't running. And that's it. That's it. She's not running. She has no oil pressure. It's just a circumstance. And the circumstance itself doesn't care what we think about it or how we feel about it. The way we experience it is completely up to us and what we're thinking about it and the story that we're telling. So Rick and I were telling very, very different stories about this at the beginning. He was saying, oh, my God, this is horrible. one thing after another, which is not really accurate from my point of view. I can see how it can seem that way to somebody who's really, really discouraged, but that was where he went. This is horrible. This is awful. What are we going to do? I'm a failure because I haven't had an opportunity to raise any money. There's nothing he could do about that. There was nothing he could do about that. The weather, and I believe it's a total God thing. It's all God. It's all good. It's all meant to strengthen us and help us and, push at our comfort zone. We came out here on purpose. So he's gone to, it's horrible, it's awful, I don't know what we're going to do, we're never going to have any money, and we're never going to be successful, and blah, blah, blah. And meanwhile, I'm telling a very different story. I'm telling a story that goes like this. It can be easy. It doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be a really expensive thing to fix. It doesn't have to be, the oil pump. It doesn't have to be that the engine is going to have to be replaced. It doesn't, because he went to the worst that it could be. He awfulized the whole thing. This is so awful. It's so awful, and I feel terrible, and it's miserable. And I was able to not go there with him because I'm not willing to have that kind of a conversation. I'm not going to have that kind of a conversation because that just feeds into the fear. And I am not willing to come from fear because I wasn't feeling any fear. God's got this, and it's all happening for a reason. And I've experienced things like this enough over the last few years to know that it always, always, always works out. It always works out, and everything's really so very all right. That's my mantra. I came from the teachings of Abraham, and I love it. Everything's really so very all right. Always. Even if it doesn't feel very good, it's still all right, and it's still all perfect. So that is where I come from, and the application of there are 5 tools in the little Choose Your Universe book. Well, the name of the book is Choose Your Universe, 5 Simple Steps to Creating the Life You Want. And they're not really steps, they're just tools because it's not meant to be used in a step-by-step way. But step number 1 is choose, you know what, I'm going to check the chat real quick. Who's here? Guest 2, guest 3, guest 4, welcome. New York, Arizona, Central Colorado. If you're in the chat and you have questions, feel free to ask them. The people who are on the phone, be prepared because I will unmute you here in a little bit to see if you have any questions and to say hi and thank you for being here. Thank you. Right now, though, thank you all for being here. And I'm going to minimize you again so I can't see you. So step number 1 is choose responsibility. And what that really means for me, because this is the way I began all those years ago when I was still in that last domestic violence relationship, I decided that my life was never going to change as long as I was blaming somebody else or the circumstance for how I was feeling. And I made a conscious, deliberate decision in that relationship, in the midst of that relationship, without leaving the relationship, because I left that relationship 10 times total. The 10th time was the final time, thank goodness. But I decided I had already left him 6 times at this point that just leaving, it wasn't going to work. I had to start being responsible for the part that I was playing in that relationship. And so I began the way most people use the word responsibility, by beating myself over the head with it. It's my fault, my life is this way because I've made these terrible, unhealthy choices over and over again. That was how I started. And I decided that was not working well for me because it was just making me feel worse. And I decided to do it differently. and to really just stand in where I was and be responsible in the moment, to, again, taking that word apart and making it two words, responsibility. My responsibility is what I do with my ability to respond in the midst of whatever's going on. In the midst of whatever's going on. That's where my power is. And as long as I'm doing that, I'm not handing my power over to another person or a circumstance. So choosing responsibility is one way of changing the story that I'm telling about the way things are going on, about the way things are happening, or the way things are going. And the whole book is about, what's the story that you're telling? Because the story that you tell creates the life you live. It's not the other way around. The story that you tell about your life is what creates your life the way you experience it. It doesn't create your circumstances, but it does create your experience. What's the story that you're telling, whether it's consciously or unconsciously? And the way you can find out is by paying attention to the conversations that you have with other people and inside your own mind. What's the story that you're telling? When Betty Lou broke down last Friday, it was all about, okay, this is the circumstance. How I experience it is completely up to me. The universe knows what it's doing, and I trust God. That's where I go, and that is what works for me. I know that the universe knows what it's doing, and when I say universe, I mean God. So I know that God knows what it's doing, and who am I to tell it to do it differently? I can experience it however I choose, and that is where my ability to respond in the midst of what's going on feels powerful to me. So, and in the conversation that Rick was wanting to have, this is horrible, this is awful, what are we going to do? And my response to him was, I'm just going to breathe. I'm just going to breathe. We do not have to figure this out right now. We don't have to figure this out right now. We have food to eat. We had a good dinner that night, and we cooked it in our house because it was our house that broke down. So, we had our beds. We even got to watch a movie because we have a generator. And so he fired up the generator, and we ran an extension cord outside to it, and we watched a movie. We breathed. We relaxed. I more so than Rick, but he followed my lead, and it worked. And we slept, and we actually slept well. And then the following day, we were only 30 miles from our destination. Our friend Kinsey brought her girls out to where we were, and we had lunch. And then she took us to her house and our dogs, and we barbecued that evening. It was not a bad experience. It was not a bad experience. But if Rick and I had gotten into that conversation of telling the story, about how awful it was, and if I had been willing to react to, then we would have just been bouncing off each other, and it would have grown, and it would have grown, and it would have fed itself, and it would have been ugly all the way around. As it was, we had a good weekend. We visited friends. They brought us back to Betty Lou. We slept. The following day, Rick, finally, the weather was nice, and there was an Earth Day event in Oklahoma City, and he was on his stilts and entertaining and relieving some of his frustration that way, being on his stilts, finally able to live his passion after a couple of weeks of not being able to, and it was good. But I had to be aware of what I was doing and stand in my practice and do it deliberately. So step number one, choose responsibility. What am I doing in the midst of this? Whether it's a conversation going on inside my own mind, whether it's a conversation with another person, whether it's traffic or a boss that I don't like, or, my spouse is not being very nice and I don't know why, or, my kids are trying to push my buttons or whatever. Your buttons are your own, and you can deactivate them anytime you choose. I learned that when I was still in that last relationship. I broke my buttons. What I do, my responsibility is what I do with my ability to respond, period. And that works for me. And when you practice it and start doing it deliberately, you will find that your life will become a heck of a lot easier than it is if you're stressing out about something. So step number 2, or tool number 2, whatever you want to call it, choose your universe. This book is called Choose Your Universe, number 1, because that seemed like a really good title. And this particular thing is based on a quote from Albert Einstein. He said, the most important question you can ever ask is this: is the universe friendly? Is the universe friendly? The universe that you live in, is it friendly or is it hostile? And the way your life is will be a direct, it's a result of how you're looking at the universe, how you're looking at your world, how you're looking at your life. When I first heard that quote, when I first heard all of this stuff, I was still in that last relationship. And I can remember when I heard that quote thinking, you mean I can choose something different from what, because the world I lived in was hostile. It was hostile and it was ugly. And, I can remember saying out loud to people, my life hates me. My life hates me. And I hate my life. And everything's against me. And nothing ever goes right. And it's a miserable place to live. And I hate, why did I ever have to be born? I used to say that all the time. Why did I have to be born if my life was going to be this way? And then I heard Mary Mann Morrissey say that quote, the most important question you could ever ask is this: is the universe friendly? And something tweaked in my mind, and I had a new thought. You mean I get to choose what I think? You mean I get to choose what I think about things? You mean I can choose to see a friendly universe in the midst of all of this pain that I'm living? So if I really was looking for a friendly universe, what would I see? And I started doing it deliberately, even in the midst of a really ugly, painful circumstance. And what I found was when the way that I did this was by applying a different quote, which is from Wayne Dyer, and it is, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And that is so true. I applied that quote deliberately in that experience with that person, and I saw things change, like right around me. It was so interesting. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at really do change. And that's how this, choosing your universe thing works for me. I choose to see a friendly universe even in the midst of stuff that doesn't feel very good, because I know it's all happening. Everything, all the challenges that I experience are for my benefit, including challenging people. The Dalai Lama talks about people that we find challenging. He calls them our sacred friends. I was just having this conversation with my friend Kiss a little while ago. There's a person on Facebook who I don't block this person because, this is a man who harasses me every once in a while, and not in a very nice way. And the reason I don't block him is because I consider him my sacred friend. And because he gives me all kinds of opportunity to practice really just being okay with it and allowing him to be who he is. And, he's not hurting me at all. He's making himself look like an ass. And I can have compassion for somebody who's in that much pain that they have to try to make somebody else look bad or feel bad or seem bad to make themselves feel better. This man is my sacred friend, and I appreciate him giving me opportunities to practice every once in a while. And the same thing goes for circumstances. And that was how I looked at my last abuser during the last 9 months I was with him. Oh, thank you. Because I'm looking at the circumstance and I'm getting beat up on a regular basis and I'm living underneath this man's thumb and nothing I do is ever right. Nothing was ever right. So where's the friendly universe in that? And I almost always ended up going to, oh, look, thank you. Thank you, universe, for giving me this opportunity to practice getting really good at applying this. And that's what worked for me. And that's you know, if you're my friend on Facebook, I know you've seen me post that before. Thank you, universe, for giving me this opportunity to practice. Thank you for this opportunity to practice. I love this. And that's the story that I tell, and that works for me, and things always shift, and I always learn really valuable lessons about myself and sometimes about other people and about, you know, having compassion for other people and having compassion for myself and on and on and on. This stuff really, really does work, and it's really, really practical. So, you know, what kind of universe do you see when you look out at your world? Is it friendly or is it hostile? And change the story that you tell about it. Change your perception of it. Change the way you're looking at it, and it will change. Your circumstances might not change, but your experience will. And there is no question about that. Step number 3, choose your destination. Where do you want to end up? Where do you want to end up? And in this particular experience, it's not so much a physical destination or like, you know, the dream come true that you know, the dream with a capital D, the desire that I usually talk about, because we've been really, you know, in the moment in this. This is about getting Betty Lou fixed so that we can, you know, in the physical, we got to be in Denver. Rick has a special needs event in Denver on Friday, May 10th, and we need to be there for that. That is important. It's important. I don't have any sort of feeling that we're not going to make it, and so I'm not worrying about it because worry never serves, you know, doesn't help anything, and we've got 2 weeks to get this taken care of, which is plenty of time. We have plenty of time. So it's not anything to worry about. And that is the destination. So, okay, so step number 3, choose your destination. The thing about the destination, where do you want to end up? If you know where you want to end up, you have to start by knowing that you deserve to end up there. You know? So if you have a dream that you're working towards, something that seems big, or out of your reach, or, you know, inaccessible to you right now, or whatever, if you don't have a feeling that you deserve to be there, you're not going to take any steps to get there, right? So that's what is the chapter is about in the book, is you got to know that you deserve to be at your destination, or you'll never make it, because you won't ever take any steps. If you're coming from, you know, I wish I could, but, you know, blah, 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 I've made mistakes in my life or whatever, you'll never take the step. So that's what the chapter is about in the book. My application of it in this particular experience, though, is about how I want to feel. How do I want to feel? What's my destination? How do I want to feel? And it's been a moment-to-moment thing. Because, yes, I would be a big fat liar if I said that I haven't had any anxiety about this. That would be a big fat lie. I just am able to recognize when I'm headed in that direction. Lao Tzu said, if you continue down the road you're on, you're going to end up where you're headed. Those 16 words completely changed my life 13 years ago. When I first heard that, I actually took a look at where my life was headed and went, oh my God, I'm going to end up in a graveyard. I'm going to die at the hands of a man who says that he loves me. Or I'm going to end up in a wheelchair and at his mercy for the rest of my life. If you continue down the road you're on, you're going to end up where you're headed. And I could see where I was headed, and I could see that it wasn't him. It wasn't him that was going to get me there. It was me and the choices I was making in that relationship. Number one, to be in that relationship in the first place, and number two, to allow him to push my buttons. And we fed off of each other in there. I was every bit as responsible in that relationship for that relationship being the way it was because of the way I engaged with him and let him engage with me. So if you continue down the road you're on, you're going to end up where you're headed. In that relationship, I had to decide where I wanted to end up. And again, it was Mary Mann Morrissey. I heard all of this stuff from her. And she said, if you continue down the road you're on, you're going to end up where you're headed. If you're going down the road, and this is what she said. She put her hands together and pointed them out in front of her and angled one out to the side. She said, if you're going down the road and you see that you don't like where you're headed, and then she angled one hand out to the side, she said, just make a little shift in direction, 10 degrees, 1 degree, a fraction of a degree. Just make a little shift in direction, and a mile down the road, you're in a whole new place. You're in a whole new place. Just a little shift in direction, and a mile down the road, you're in a whole new place. So during this particular experience, and this is what this call is about, it's about the practical application in the moment of these tools. My destination, my chosen destination has been, I want to feel good. I want to feel hopeful. I want to feel empowered. I want to feel hopeful is probably the word I go to the most. I want to feel hopeful. I want to feel confident that it's all going to work out perfectly. I want to feel the divine, the presence of the divine in all of this as we live this experience, or in some instances it has felt like this experience has been living us. So as I pay attention to how I'm feeling, if I start feeling discouraged or worried or whatever, I know it's because of what I'm thinking. It's not because of anything going on in the circumstance. It's because of what I'm thinking about the circumstance. So what's my destination? Where do I want to end up? Do I want to end up where this feeling is going to take me? And the feeling, if I allow it to grow and feed upon itself, is going to become despair and discouragement and frustration and anger and, why do we even bother? And I give up. Let's just go back to Arizona, tuck our tail between our legs, and Rick can go back to doing drywall till the day he dies, and we'll just let go of the dream. And I am not willing to do that. I'm not willing to do that. I'm not willing to end up at that destination. I'm not going to do it because I know I don't have to. So as each time I have caught myself doing that to myself, I have been aware. And that's really what it is. It's a matter of being awake and aware to what's going on inside yourself. So as I've caught myself going down the road toward discouragement, look at what I'm doing. Look at what I'm doing. Let's make a shift in direction because that is not where I want to end up. I want to end up empowered. I want to feel confident. I want to feel hopeful. I want to feel prosperous. I want to feel prosperous. I want to feel like we have everything we need. And as I do that deliberately, I can look around and see that I have every single thing I need right now in this moment. I have every single thing I need right now in this moment. If that were not true, I wouldn't be here. And the same is true for everyone. We each have every single thing we need right now in this moment. And if that were not true, we wouldn't be here. So that's it for step number 3. Step number 4, am I going to choose fear or am I going to choose faith? And this, I really had to use this one a lot with regard to letting people know that we needed help. I caught myself telling the story that I hate asking people for money. I hate asking people for money. I don't want to ask people for money. I don't, because what are they thinking about me that I'm because it seems like, my little mind wants to go to, God, you're continually telling people you need money. What the hell? Why can't you just earn some? Why don't you blah, 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 blah? Not very nice stuff going on in my mind about this. So when it came time, we're being willing to receive ideas of how to earn some money, and the idea for this call showed up right away. And one thing that I know about God is God's currency is ideas. It all starts with an idea. It doesn't start with the money. It starts with an idea for earning the money. So here I am. I know that I am providing some really good content in this call. And the reason I know is because this stuff really works, and I am living proof that it does. And every person listening will receive at least one thing from this call that should they choose to apply it in their life, will work for them. So why should I not ask to be compensated? Okay, so step number 4 is paying attention to, am I choosing fear or am I choosing faith? William Shakespeare said, our doubts are traitors and make us lose the good we oft might win by fearing to attempt. So if I'm too chicken to put it out there that we need an income so that we can get this issue taken care of, what am I going to lose? Well, hello, I'm going to lose getting the issue taken care of if I'm too afraid to ask. And that's really what it was. That whole, I was telling myself a big old story about I hate asking people for money. I'm sick of having to ask people for money. I don't want to have to ask people for money. Blah, 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 blah. And another voice came in and said, why is that? Why do you have to hate doing this? Why do you have to hate asking for donations when it was all a part of the plan that donations were going to be a big part of this? Rick is gifting his time and talent, and I'm not getting paid for, marketing him and managing him and finding him events to entertain at. I'm not getting paid either. So we sort of, that is a big part of our income is asking for donations. So why not change the way you're looking at this and make it a part of the fun? Why not make it a part of the adventure, getting past this fear of what are people going to think? Because that's really all it was. What are people going to think? This money should magically appear out of thin air for us. We shouldn't have to ask people for it. So, how realistic is that? No, we're out here living in midair. We're out here we're applying the contents of a book by Brene Brown called Daring Greatly, which is about being vulnerable. And this, for me, is being vulnerable, having to say, I can't pull money out of my butt. I need help is hard for me. And listen to me telling that story right now. Up until now, it's been hard for me. I'm just going to change it right now. This is how it works. I heard myself say it. I heard myself tell the story that it's hard for me. You know what? Up until this moment, it's been hard for me. Right now, I'm living an adventure. I'm outside my comfort zone. I'm growing as a person. I'm getting past the fear. I'm not letting the fear of what other people are going to think of me control my actions in this. So so the fear has been neutralized. Then what? Then what do? Martin Luther King said, take the first step in faith. You don't have to see the whole staircase. Just take the step. Just take the first step in faith. You don't have to see the whole staircase. Just take the step. And I was reciting that quote as I was climbing up the steps of the Greyhound bus when I ran from Portland all those years ago. I don't have to know how this is going to work out. I just got to take this step right here. This step right here is the one I have to take in faith. because I can't step into the future and know what's going to happen. And where would be the fun in that? No, this is an adventure. I'm living what I feel called to live. And the steps that I'm taking right now are my steps in faith. I'm blah, 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 on and on. This is how the inner dialogue goes with me because I've been doing it for so long. Okay, I'm getting past the fear. Our doubts are traitors and make us lose the good we oft might win by fearing to attempt. What am I going to win if I can get past this fear? Well, I will have grown as a person. As I practice, I will become a better receiver. You know, I can ask all day long, but if I'm not a very good receiver, what's going to show up for me? So I will become a better receiver. I will become a more graceful asker. You know, letting people know this is what's going on. If you feel inspired, throw us a few dollars. If not, then throw us a hug, you know. But, you know, I will never connect with those people who are inspired to help us in that kind of a tangible way if I'm not willing to open my mouth, if I'm not willing to say, you know, here's an opportunity for you to be a giver if you feel so inclined, and I'm willing to be a graceful receiver, and I'm a graceful and grateful receiver, and thank you so much for your contributions. So I can feel the difference in myself already as I have made this a deliberate, I mean, how successful are we going to be if we're not good receivers as we live in midair, traveling around the United States in our motorhome for the summer, you know, if I'm not able to be a good receiver? The success isn't going to happen, and it's going to feel not very good. So I choose to be a good receiver. I choose to stand in faith and know that I will connect with the people I'm supposed to connect with. And if people are judging me, and I'm sure that some are, if people are judging me about this, that's not about me. It's not about me. It's about what they see when they look at me. So that's really about them. Because, hello, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So that goes for everybody, not just me. So that's what, you know, I love these tools. I love these tools because they are so practical. So choose fear or choose faith. And the story that you're telling, either way, is the story that you're going to live. I don't have a lot to be afraid of except the things that go on in my own mind. And I know from experience that standing in faith and taking my steps in faith, even though I don't know, when we left Phoenix, we had no idea what was going to happen. We had no idea what was going to happen. I have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow, but I know it's going to be fun because I choose that. And I can stand in faith and know that. And doing this call is a step in faith. Saying the things I'm saying right now is a step in faith. Choosing how I'm going to look at, you know, the people that I'm going to be interacting with when I get off this phone is a step in faith. Everything is a step in faith. I believe, and that's my practice. I don't always live it that way, but I do practice it, and I find it very empowering, and I find that it helps me to be a much more compassionate person, towards other people and toward myself. So take your steps in faith. You don't have to see the whole staircase. Just take the steps, and God's got it. So step number 5, and we're almost at the end of the hour, solution-level thinking. It's all about solution level. What's the story that you're telling? Do you tell a story of problems, or do you tell a story of solutions? Albert Einstein said the significant problems we face cannot be solved at the level of thinking that created them. The significant problems we face cannot be solved at the level of thinking that created those problems. It's not possible. So if I'm standing in the land of my problem, and all I see is my problem, the problem is just going to grow in my experience, not in my circumstances, because, you know, circumstances just are. But in my experience, as long as I have my attention on, oh my God, this is such a huge problem, all I'm going to see is a huge problem. But if I can take my attention off the problem and put it on the end result that I want, then, oh my God, things fall into place. Things fall into, I don't even know how to explain what an awesome day I've had today. It has been things falling into place all day long. Things falling into place all day long. And that's how the whole week has gone. Today, it just seems to have built up some huge momentum, and everything has gone right today. It has been so much fun, including I had to call Sprint twice for customer service because of quote-unquote problems that I was having. But the experience that I had with the customer service people was so much fun that I was happy that I had the problems because I got to have so much fun talking to the customer service people at Sprint. You know, and I love that I just said that because it's such a simplistic explanation. We can do that with anything. We can do that. We can look at anything that way. And I have come to really understand that things that I see as a problem or as an obstacle are required. They're required for my growth. Without them, I don't have the opportunity to grow because it takes challenge to grow as a person. Without challenge, there's no meaning to the growth. So it's like David and Goliath. David would never have had the opportunity to marry the king's daughter and become the king later on if Goliath hadn't been there. And Goliath was a pretty big problem. But it was necessary, it was required for Goliath to be there for David to become the man he was meant to become. I'm not even going to say that again. I know that made complete sense. We're at 9 o'clock right now. I'm going to go look at the chat. And okay, we're at 9 o'clock where I am right now. Yes, 4 is my cousin. Hi, Jerry. Paula says, learning to receive is a valuable lesson. Thanks for sharing your ideas. Well, thank you, Paula. I appreciate that. Hi, Linda. I see you made it. I'm sorry that you didn't. I realized that you got caught up in something else, but you know what? It's all perfect. And I'm happy that you're here. Deanna, you're still here. New York, I'm going to unmute you and see if you have any questions. You are unmuted. Hello.
Hello.
Who is this?
This is Jean.
Hi, Jean. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Do you have any questions?
No, I think you were very, very clear.
Oh, awesome. Thank you for saying that, because this has all been off the top of my head. Okay, so I'm assuming that this is the Jean that I think it is, and we had a conversation on Facebook, yes?
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I'm going to remute you, and I love that you're here. Arizona, you are unmuted. Hello.
Hello.
Who is that?
Linda.
Linda. Do you want to say? Hi. I'm so happy that you're here. I had no idea you were going to be here.
Yeah, I just got on Facebook tonight and saw your posting and said I'm going to go listen to her tonight.
Well,
so I'm
happy. How's your ankle?
Oh, I'm good. I've been walking for a little over 3 weeks now. I'm back to work and doing good.
Good for you. That is so cool. I'm so happy that you're here. Do you have any questions?
No.
Well, okay
it's
then.
Really good, clear, and I'm really glad I joined in tonight.
Me too. So, life is good. Okay, so I'm going to remute you.
Okay.
Well, that's just wonderful. I love that she's here. So that's about what I have to say, and I'm happy to only be 2 minutes late. If any of you would like a copy of the book, it can be ordered from my website at www.chooseyouruniverse.com, or get a hold of me on Facebook or whatever. And if you are inspired to contribute something toward our journey or toward getting Betty Lou fixed, which is the most immediate concern, that can be done either from my website or from Rick's at www.dancingacrossamerica.com. And it is my hope that you have received some really useful stuff from this call, because that's really what I want. Just pay attention to the story that you tell. There are so many things you can do to shift things in your experience, but it can only happen from the inside out, and that's what this book is for. Oh, my friend Linda says, folks, I use this book all the time. It's been crucial to me getting through some pretty tough times. And that's how I feel about it, too. It's a good little book. It's a 30-minute read, and it's meant to be used. It's meant to be applied. I also have a second book, Pop Your Paradigm, is available there, and my third book, Successfully Midair, How to Navigate Your Leap of Faith and Land in the Life You Want, should be coming out here, I'm thinking probably in the next month or so. I'll be making announcements. So on that note, thank you all for being here. If you have any questions or would like to talk privately, you can email me at chooseyouruniverse@gmail.com or call me at 602-999-1250 if you'd rather do that. I'm here. I'm available. And I would love to help you learn how to apply this stuff if you would like your life to change for the better, or even just something that a circumstance that you're in that doesn't feel very good. I would love to help you through that. So I love you all, and thank you for being here. Life is good all the time. Bye.